Hi, everybody. Well, look who I have with me today. Melanie Smith, who you know from As the World Turns. My gosh, it's so great to see you.
Oh, honey, it's great to see you, and thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. And you have so many different careers now. I like to say that about myself, but you have a new single out.
I do.
That is so great.
Thank you.
And I was reading a bit about the story of it. This was, I think your son inspired the choice of the song and all of that. But tell me about, first of all, let's talk about the music, and we'll go back to World Turns.
So the music is something, I've always loved. I was a dancer. My mother was a singer. But I grew up in a family where the age range was quite broad. I was 45 years younger or so than my parents. My oldest sister was 20 years younger. So I had everything from Tony Bennett and Billie Holiday down to like Mata Hoople and disco. And so my whole life was this range of music, but I always wanted to make a jazz album. When I was in my 20s, I had a small record deal with Sony World, and they wanted me in the pop world. So when I decided to pick up the singing again, I made the decision to really go straight to jazz and Smile, which is such a classic, such a beautiful song. I always wanted my son to have something with him to remind him, I won't be here one day. And I want him to know that when we have faith in ourselves and in life and in something bigger than ourselves, just as in the movie that Smile was from, the Charlie Chaplin film, the scene takes place where he's with this beautiful homeless girl and she's happy. And he says to her, "Where do you live?" And she says, "I live nowhere and everywhere." And he starts talking to her about a dream home. And, there's this bonding. And then the police come and say, "Shoo, shoo, shoo," whatever. And they dance away, and the whole magic of the song is life can be hard. We can have challenges. And when we make choices to see it from a place of light, as you know, I'm also a grief and trauma specialist. So that was my book that came out in last August.
Yes.
So I'm always teaching people the highest way to see loss and heartbreak, because you can't avoid it. So you may as well develop a skill. So the whole album, The Broken and the Breaker, was created to tell the story of love and loss and loving again, and that life. There's a song on the album that will be coming out called Again. And it's really about how everything comes around again if we let it. So
when do you think the album will come out?
So the album will actually be for sale very soon.
Okay.
I'll leave you the website and people can go directly to the website and buy the whole album. There will be another single released in about 6 weeks. And then I believe one after that. And then the rest of the album will just be for sale on iTunes and on my website.
Now, were these all cover tunes or any originals on there?
7 of them are originals. 2 of them, Smile and A Case of You by Joni Mitchell. Those are that standard in a cover. And my band is extraordinary. They're Lady Gaga's band. They're the guys who won the Grammys for the Tony Bennett album, both Tony Bennett albums, and go everywhere with her. So to be in the studio with these maestros, at first I was really nervous. I was like, oh, and then they loved the music and they were so creative and so extraordinary. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Were you influenced by the Ella Fitzgeralds of it all and everybody? Like, who was your,
100%.
Right? I mean, Ella had the most beautiful, amazing voice, but so many
incredible.
Right.
But, Anita O'Day, Billie Holiday, even Judy Garland. Doris Day. I was obsessed with. I played a game with my kids the other night. It's called like the generation gap or something. And we were on a trip and they asked all these questions, and they asked some question about a song and who was it? It was like Pillow Talk and something in this song and that. And I was like, Doris Day. And everybody's like, how did you know that so fast? And I said, she was my spirit animal when I was growing up.
Hey. Oh my God.
Clooney.
Of course. Now in the originals, are they written by you with the band or you?
So they're written by, there's one that's only me, which will be the next release. It's a song called Love Me for Who I Am. And that song was really inspired by being in show business. And when people would meet me and they'd be like, I thought you were 5'9", or, I don't know, I thought you were this, or I thought you were that, or I thought you would party more, or and I would be like, I'm not a movie star and I'm not a fantasy. I'm a person that just gets up and like wants her coffee like everybody else, So it's a song really about how in our society, we're in love with things that don't even exist. And so until we get past that, finding true love is challenging, right? And that's the next song. I don't know if you remember the song, Nobody's Gonna Break My Stride. Nope. Remember that song? Yes. He wrote that, and he wrote Show Some Emotion for Celine, and he wrote so many things for Aaron Neville and Barbra Streisand and Bette Midler. So I wrote, I think, 2 songs with Greg. I wrote with Michael Kalina, brilliant. I think Michael probably has 10 Grammys now. He's an incredible jazz artist. Wrote with Michael, Jeff Rose, Teddy Goldstein. And I don't play, right? So collaborators really help me, obviously. So I write lyric and melody. And even on Smile, I wrote an opening verse with my producer because we wanted it to be like a real classic jazz song that had an opening verse that introduces you to the story, right? From that transition of like Broadway to jazz, it opens that story and then the song comes on. So
did they tell you why they hooked us up, you and me?
No.
Because
you're a singer. And I was told, by the way, that your voice is incredible. Like it was said like this. Yeah, you're a good singer. His voice is incredible.
Well, first of all, we're completely different types of singers.
Wait, what's that?
You're very different types of singers. You can't compare. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, I'm not doing jazz, but but whatever.
What do you do like Broadway
pop,
theater?
I do very pop, R&B now, dance, pop, R&B. So like it's all that. So if you go to my Spotify, you're on Spotify, you'll hear my tracks. I have a new song coming out. I so appreciate everything you're saying and everything you do, because I know how hard it is as an independent artist to put it all together, create your vision, getting with the producers, with the writers, mastering. Like there's so much that goes into it. And independent artists there's so many amazing artists out there that just do not.
You have to have a different, one of the things, I coach creatives, whether they're CEOs and founders of companies or whether they're people in the creative field trying to build their life as a creative. And one of the reasons I think creatives come to me is because I see it as very endless, right? I don't look at the world of a creative as a singer, actor, dancer, whatever, as finite the way people used to, right? Like, I'm going to be 62. And so like people are like, well, why would you do it? Like, isn't it over by then? And I'm like, well, I'm still alive and I'm still creative. And I don't believe in that. I believe in if it wants to be born from you, you better heal. And that's the book I wrote, all those beliefs that stop you from doing the things you dream about. because life is, people always go, life is short. No, life is long too, right? And so you want to put all of your passion and your story and your wisdom out into the world any way you can. And for me, music is the highest form of art. It bypasses the limbic system. It gets into us. It heals us. It allows us to find a place in ourselves beyond the noise. And that's what I love about it.
Right. And I feel the same way. I think it's the highest form of art for me. And, you know, I had the same thing. What do you think you're going to do with this? Where are you going to go with this? No one's going to want to, you're too old. Nobody's going to give you a record deal. No. And I'm like,
let me tell you something, Michael. Even the friends who have record deals, right? It's not the world it was.
No, okay? It is not the world it was.
Like even look, J-Lo just canceled her tour, right? Because people aren't buying tickets like that. And we are a generation away from it almost being gone, right? And there's so many artists and people are really training their kids now. In our generation, it was, don't do that. Be a doctor, be a lawyer, whatever. So there was 1 in a million that went for the dream, right? Now there's 1 million and one that doesn't.
I mean, that's why I am so happy and impressed. I'm so glad you did this because I get it. I get it. And I go through the same thing in my own way with all the doubters and the people and the, why are you doing this? And like, no, this is my art. This is what I'm doing. And whenever I do interviews about it, I will 100% equivocally say my life experience has made me a better songwriter now than I was 30 years ago. Like now I have so much more lived experience and I feel like I can write really great songs. And you know this, in writing, I love that when people listen to your song, and a great song, everybody takes from it how they interpret that song. It may not be what you wrote it about, but they're getting something out of it that they're related.
They have their movie.
Right.
Right? You're singing about love. It's about their love. Right? You're singing about heartache. It's about their heartache. You're singing about courage. It's their courage. And one of the things that I have always said about this, Michael, when people say like, what do you want to have happen? Whether it was the record or the book, people are like, if I can change people's lives, even 1, even 2, even 5, I've done what I've come to this earth to do.
So that's it. Did As the World Turns or Emily and Stewart inspire any of the songs?
Well, I'm going to tell you something interesting. I didn't even know I could sing until a producer, called me when I was on As the World Turns and said, can you sing We Love Your Image? And I said, I don't think so. And they said, can you write? And I said, well, I write poetry. And they said, okay, well, let's meet. And we wrote a couple of songs. And I went into the recording studio and they needed a vocal just to wrap the instrumentals around. And they basically said, you can sing. Let's have you sing this. And that's really, and then someone came from Sony and they said, why don't we work with you? And it went from there. Then I left the business to have my child and I really didn't do much of anything. And then a producer came to me before COVID and said, would you start your music up again? And I was like, And then we were going to do a 1-woman show and then COVID hit. And then my teacher, Tiphon, who was my producer, Siren Tip, she said, why are you not doing a record? Your songs are gorgeous. Your voice, I love it. Your tone is great. Let's do it. So I said, okay. And all these musicians came on board and it got done. The universe conspired.
I'm so happy for you. That is wonderful. I love when you get it. I love it when it's done. And now you have
right. Yeah.
You know, because it's like, and then sometimes you're like, wait, it's done. Now what do I do? You know, it's like,
sometimes,
all
the time.
all the time. And I, you know, it's so funny. And I don't know how you feel about it. I wish I had a bigger ego to be on Instagram constantly. Here I am here. Here I am here. It would help. But sometimes I think I edit myself so much that sometimes I don't, you know what I mean? Because I see people like, oh, I'm just going to put that up. And, you know, I don't.
It's funny. I'm not, you know, everybody's like, you have to do reels and you have to do this. And I say to them, I'm really a private person. I don't really, and I'm not a boaster. And I'm not ever doing it for anything but my soul. So it feels out of alignment for me to come up with something so my numbers grow. I'm not doing this for numbers. I have had an incredible life as a creative. I believe in creative spirits. I think that we don't necessarily have a place on social media for that. I think if we put our music up, like I like putting the song up. I like sharing that. I like sharing the book. I like sharing my spiritual evolution and wisdom. But like to have it be contrived takes me very far from the art. I do have a social media person that understands that about me. And she does all the mechanics. I do all the writing and she mechanically puts things together. And she knows that I will never be that person that's like, yeah, like, look at me, look at me. And people who are like Tip, my producer, she's great at it. She's always teaching music and she's always talking about the environment. And she's got really poignant things to put out there. If I don't think it's important, I can't just make it up. You know what I mean?
100%. I'm so.
So you and me, we're kindred spirits, baby. Look at that. Look at that.
I was just quickly wrapping up about As the World Turns for everybody that knows you from it.
Yes.
You were for 5 years?
Just under 5 years.
Just
yeah. As Emily, the bad girl.
Emily, the bad girl. And you worked with Marie Masters.
Yeah. By the way, you know, her son has 5 Grammys. He wrote Norah Jones's album.
What?
He wrote I Don't Know Why.
I didn't know.
Jesse Harris wrote I Don't Know Why.
That's right. Oh my God. Well, do you
remember? And I remember Jesse used to ask me for songwriting advice. I'm so glad he never took it.
But you were there with Marie as your mom.
Love Marie. I love Marie. I'm still best friends with Mary Ellen Stewart.
I knew Mary Ellen Stewart and you were besties.
Still close to Maggie Reed. Good friends with Colleen Zank, who, look at her, crazy lady and Young and the Restless.
Jordan, killing it as Jordan.
And yeah, what a great, and Scotty Bryce. I mean, still, you know, in touch.
And was Andrew Pavovit your love interest? No.
Yeah.
How did you feel when World Turns ended? You weren't there, but
I wasn't there. But I will say something. I was sad that all of them ended, right? Like, I used to make a joke that I never wanted to be an actress. I only wanted to live in Oakdale.
You only wanted what?
I said, I never wanted to be an actress. I only wanted to live in Oakdale, right? Like,
I thought you said I only wanted to live in a hotel.
No, well, that too. You know, my mom, it was my mom's favorite show. And so I was like obsessed with Oakdale. And, you know, we were a CBS family. We never watched the others at all. You know, my friends would rush home to watch Luke and Laura. And I was rushing home to watch, you know, James and Barbara. And who knew I'd be my lover. So when I got that job, my mom lost her mind. She just thought it was incredible. So when the show went off the air, it was so sad, but it was so sad that the genre on this coast went off the air. Like that to me, I don't care what anybody says. Reality television does not replace this art. And I think it's a loss for those of us that really loved that daily experience and those stories.
Oh, it was terrible. I mean, once they canceled you guys and then All My Children and One Life to Live, and it was just wiped out. And, you know, there was such an allure with the East Coast shows. And there was also that East Coast, West Coast thing. And, you know, we would come from the West Coast because we all wanted to be at the Emmys with the East Coast people that we wouldn't see. And they were like the actors. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they were
like, all thespians.
All thespians.
They all went to the conservatories. You know, they were Tony winners. And, you know, and I remember when I was coming off World Turns, there was a piece and they said, you know, Julianne Moore is the next Meryl Streep and Meg Ryan's the next Goldie Hawn and Melanie's the next Jane Fonda. And, you know, we came out into the world with chops. You know, you go in as a little Bambi and then you're standing opposite people like Liz Hubbard and Larry Brigman. You don't mess up but once. Like, then you get that look and you're like, okay, that can never happen again.
Were you on with you? Julianne Moore was there when you were there?
Yes, no. Julie was there. Yeah, Julianne was there. Yeah.
Did you think she was going to be a star?
Oh, yeah. Not only because she was talented, but because she knew exactly what she wanted. She had such precision in her work. She really did. I also knew Parker was going to do great.
Parker Posey. Parker just got an Emmy nomination this morning.
Yeah, I knew Parker was going to do great. I knew Billy Fichtner was going to do great. I knew Marissa was going to do great. I knew Meg was going to do, you know, you just know that there are people that have a thing, you know, they just have a thing. And there's something about them that is so radiant or so powerful, you know, that they have great moments in the industry. Yeah.
Yes. And I was just going to say, when you left the show, was it hard to leave the show and then see somebody else take on that role? Because I know Kelly Minahan had it after you.
Yeah. And, you know, it wasn't hard simply because, you know, Doug really tried to get me to stay. He was so wonderful to me. I loved him. And he did everything but my mother was dying. Yeah. And so and then once that happened, something happened to me that I needed to be somewhere else. And so leaving, I wouldn't say it was necessarily hard to leave. Did I miss? It's still to this day my favorite genre. Like, even after doing film and live,
right,
that was still my favorite genre. So it wasn't that it was hard to leave because there was a very meaningful reason for me to leave. I didn't have a problem with someone taking the role over. I did think it was a very different character. That was my only, and I really only watched on occasion, but I did think it was
happening with her. It's happening with
Emily. It was just it was a whole different interpretation, which is fair, right? It's fair to reinterpret a character when you make it your own. There was no obligation or reason for her to follow in my footsteps. But it was interesting to see how the character did shift. Yeah.
You work with Patricia Bruder?
Yeah. She was my Grammy.
Grammy. She was Ellen. Ellen Stewart. Yeah. I mean, legend Ellen from the beginning. Yeah. She was your grandma.
I mean, they're all, you know, I watched some of the like originals and like to see Eileen and Dawn, and they were like 20 or something. Boy, they were so good.
They were great. Because I remember
the writing was so intriguing. Like even back then. You know, it was very risque. They can't have a baby.
Yeah, it was so risque back then. Yeah.
He's like it was all so good. And there's a juicy drama to it that is really missable.
Could you ever see yourself going back to a soap?
If it was the right character. Yeah.
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 So maybe you come out to LA.
But there's none alive here.
Right. Well,
I come out to, and we could sing together, Michael.
we could sing together, come to LA, we'll do a guest star on Days of Our Lives or whatever, and then we'll go in the
There's
studio.
no business.
Then we'll go in the studio.
We get jazz hands and all that stuff.
Yeah. I got to get on the phone and call the casting directors right now to get you a gig out here.
Heck yeah.
One of the shows. It's been so nice to talk to you. Everybody,
nice to
go listen to Smile on streaming platforms everywhere. And
follow me.
Follow Melanie Smith. Is it
on
at
Spotify?
Is it right? And
and on Instagram, it's at Melanie Smith Official.
Correct.
And then my website is Work with Melanie Smith, or the album side is The Broken and the Breaker.
So The Broken and the Breaker, we will be able to purchase there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Have a great day, Melanie. It's so nice to talk to you.
Big kiss and hug, sweetheart. Thank you for your time, Mr. Handsome.
Okay.